I have a job to do, but it is far from normal. My name is Silas, known as the Janitor of Shadows, part caretaker and part security guard of this old, forgotten place full of sagging shelves. My broom sweeps away not only dust, but also the lingering memories, the remnants of spells long cast and nearly forgotten. The library was a relic of ancient times, a repository of knowledge saved from the fires of the Great Library of Alexandria. Yeah, that Library of Alexandria. The greatest hall of knowledge ever known to exist. If you thought that only the good and holy texts were what the caretakers tried to salvage, there's more to that story. Once, there was a group of chroniclers that looked over the dark and arcane section of the once great library. They all escaped the fire with as many tomes and scrolls as they could physically carry. It all ended up here, and now we're all caught up. Excuse me, but I need to get back to work. The rain fell in a relentless rhythm, tapping against the stained glass windows of the forgotten library of Ebon Hollows. The windows, a patchwork of muted colors, cast a somber glow across the vast, shadowy interior. Hidden away in a remote, desolate corner of the world, the forgotten library stands as a monument to human curiosity and folly. Its ceiling soared high above, lost in the gloom, while the walls seemed to lean towards each other, whispering secrets only they could understand. Leather-bound volumes lined the shelves, their spines cracked and faded with age. Some were bound in human skin, inked with spells that defied the ravages of time. Silas's old and tired eyes, dimmed by years of secrets, caught glimpses of ghostly figures, the wraiths. They drifted between the shelves, their ethereal forms flickering in and out of existence like half-remembered dreams. These wraiths, keepers of forbidden knowledge, were bound to the library by ancient, unbreakable oaths, remnants of the ones who escaped with all the dangerous knowledge kept within. They moved silently, their presence felt more than seen, their whispers like the rustling of old parchment. In the heart of the library stood the Whispering Staircase, a narrow descent hidden behind a heavy, moth-eaten tapestry. Silas had gone down it once, drawn by a gnawing curiosity that he couldn't suppress. At the bottom, he had glimpsed otherworldly realms, heard the wraiths' lamentations, and seen the fate of all who dared enter the library. The knowledge he gained on that day haunted him still, etched into his mind like frost on glass. Silas muttered to himself as he worked, his voice a low, gravelly echo in the vast, empty hall. "Dust and shadows," he said, sweeping an errant pile of dust into his pan. "Dust and shadows. That's all we are." His fingers, gnarled and twisted from years of toil, traced the silver-threaded velvet of a particular volume, the Grimoire of Ashen Pages. Its edges were frayed, its runes ancient and powerful. Within lay spells to summon wraiths, to glimpse otherworldly landscapes, and to rewrite destiny itself. The rain outside intensified, and the library seemed to respond, the walls creaking and groaning as if it were alive. Silas paused, his senses alert. He thought he heard the faint, mournful cries of the wraiths, lamenting their eternal bondage. Or was it his own mind playing tricks on him? The boundary between reality and delusion had long since blurred for Silas, a man caught between worlds. He continued his solitary work, his mind drifting back to Elias, his predecessor, who had vanished mysteriously many years ago. Elias's tarnished key still hung around Silas's neck, a constant reminder of the heavy mantle he had inherited. What secrets had Elias taken with him? What knowledge had driven him to the brink of madness, or perhaps beyond? Where the hell did he go? As the night deepened, the library seemed to come alive. The wraiths fully emerged, their whispers growing louder, their form more defined. Silas stood, trying to understand, listening to the voices that beckoned him deeper into the shadows. The grimoire's final chapter, the one that revealed the fate of all who entered the library, loomed in his thoughts, a dark promise of enlightenment or doom. The rain had ceased by dawn, leaving the air thick and heavy with mist. Silas stood in the dim light of the library, the silence almost deafening. The weight of the key around his neck seemed to grow heavier with each passing day, a constant reminder of the man who had come before him, Elias Grimwood. Elias had been more than a predecessor. He was a legend among those who knew the secrets of Ebon Hollows. Once a passionate scholar, Elias had dedicated his life to uncovering the mysteries of the forgotten tomes rescued from the flames of Alexandria. These were no ordinary books. They were repositories of ancient, forbidden knowledge, each one more dangerous than the last, minus the grimoire. Silas recalled the first time he had seen Elias, a figure hunched over a desk, his fingers tracing the delicate runes of the grimoire with reverence and fear. Elias's obsession was almost frightening, his eyes alight with the fire of a man who had glimpsed the infinite and was desperate for more. The grimoire of ashen pages had captivated him, its silver-threaded velvet cover a siren's call to his insatiable curiosity. Elias had spent countless nights poring over its contents, muttering incantations under his breath, his voice a low, fervent chant. He dared not to complete any full incantations. He would stop just shy of the final word or rune. The wraiths had hovered around him, their presence both a comfort and a curse. They were the keepers of the knowledge he sought, bound to the library by oaths older than memory itself. The pact he made with them granted him immortality, a gift that soon revealed itself to be a double-edged sword. Silas could still remember the night Elias disappeared. The moon had been full, casting an eerie glow through the stained glass windows, and the library had been alive with whispers. Elias had descended the whispering staircase, the tarnished key in his hand, his steps echoing through the vast hall. Silas had watched from the shadows, too afraid to follow, but unable to look away. What had Elias seen in that final chapter? What secrets had driven him to the brink of madness? The grimoire's final chapter held the answers, a chapter that Elias had read but never spoken of. Silas could only imagine the horrors or revelations that had been etched into his predecessor's mind. As the new janitor of shadows, Silas had inherited more than just the key. He had inherited the library's legacy, the burden of its secrets, and the gnawing doubt that slowly consumed his sanity. He often found himself muttering to the empty air, his voice a thin thread in the oppressive silence. Were the whispers in his mind his own thoughts, or the voices of the wraiths? "Elias, what did you find?" Silas whispered to himself, his voice trembling. "What truth was so terrible that you vanished without a trace?" He glanced at the grimoire, its presence a constant temptation. The final chapter beckoned, promising answers to questions he dared not ask. He could feel the wraith's eyes upon him, their spectral forms flickering at the edge of his vision. They were waiting, always waiting, for him to make his choice. Silas's fingers traced the runes on the grimoire's cover, feeling the pulse of its ancient power. The knowledge within could grant him redemption or doom, freedom or eternal bondage. The line between sanity and madness grew thinner each day, the whispers louder, more insistent. The wraith's whispers swirled around him, a cacophony of voices urging him to read, to uncover the final truth. Silas hesitated, torn between his fear and his unrelenting curiosity. He tried to shut out the temptation through his chores and work, like trying to fight the withdrawals of a relentless addiction. Would he follow in Elias's footsteps, go down the whispering staircase, and face the same fate? Or would he turn away, content to live in ignorance, the secrets of the forgotten library forever beyond his reach? As the day turned to night, Silas found himself once again at the precipice of the whispering staircase. The moon rose, casting its silvery light through the stained glass, transforming the interior of the library. The wraiths emerged from the shadows, their whispers a haunting symphony, taunting him, getting in his head. Silas stood, the key heavy around his neck, the temptation before him. Silas paused, leaning on his broom as he exchanged a silent conversation with himself. "What do they want?" he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "They seek solace in the shadows," a voice echoed in his mind, a remnant of a conversation long past. Silas's grip tightened on the broom handle as he continued his silent dialogue. "But at what cost?" "The cost is immaterial," the voice replied, its tone both haunting and soothing. "The pact was made long ago, and now we are bound by it." Silas shook his head, as if trying to dispel the voice from his mind. "But Elias..." "Elias made his choice," the voice interrupted, its words a solemn reminder of the consequences of their actions. "And now, you must make yours." Silas's gnarled fingers traced the silver-threaded velvet of the grimoire once again. He grabbed his broom and tried to focus on something other than losing his mind. As he swept the moonlit floors, Silas pondered the pact he had made with the wraiths. Yes, it had granted him immortality, but at what cost? Elias's disappearance haunted him, a specter of regret that lingered in the shadows. Silas's footsteps faltered as he again approached the hidden entrance to the whispering staircase. The air seemed to grow colder, and a sense of unease settled over him like a shroud. "Is this wise?" he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible in the oppressive silence of the library. A faint whisper echoed in Silas's mind, a spectral voice that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "You seek answers, janitor of shadows," it intoned, its words both chilling and enticing. "But be warned, some truths are best left buried." Silas clenched his jaw, steeling himself against the race-haunting words. "I've come too far to turn back now," he replied, his voice tinged with determination. "The Whispering Staircase holds the key to unlocking the library's secrets, and I intend to uncover them." As Silas pushed aside the moth-eaten tapestry and stepped into the darkness beyond, he felt a chill run down his spine. Memories of his previous descent flooded his mind, each one a reminder of the dangers that lurked within the Whispering Staircase. But he knew that he could not falter now, not when he was so close to uncovering the truth. The narrow stairwell seemed to stretch on endlessly, its depths shrouded in darkness. Silas descended slowly, his hand trailing along the rough stone wall for support. With each step, the whispers grew louder, their words a jumbled chorus that echoed in his mind. But despite the overwhelming sense of dread that threatened to consume him, Silas pressed on. He was determined to reach the bottom of the Whispering Staircase, to confront whatever lay in wait for him in the depths below. For better or for worse, he knew that his fate was inexplicably tied to the secrets of the library, and he would not rest until he had uncovered them all. Far from the prying eyes of civilization, a group made their way through the dense forest that surrounded the forgotten library of Ebon Hollows. Among them was Dr. Amelia Blackwood, an esteemed archaeologist with a reputation for uncovering ancient mysteries. Her companions, Eric, a seasoned explorer, and Lily, a skilled linguist, followed closely behind, their footsteps muffled by the thick underbrush. "This is it," Dr. Blackwood said, her voice filled with anticipation as they neared their destination. "The forgotten library of Ebon Hollows, the repository of lost knowledge and forbidden secrets." Eric nodded, his gaze scanning the looming silhouette of the library against the night sky. "It's even more impressive than the rumors suggested," he remarked, a hint of excitement in his voice. As they approached the library's crumbling facade, Lily's eyes widened with wonder. "I can't believe we're actually here," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. But their awe was short-lived as they noticed the heavy tapestry that hung over the entrance to the library, a clear sign that they were not welcome. Dr. Blackwood exchanged a worried glance with her companions. "We must proceed with caution," she warned, her voice tinged with concern. "The library may be filled with dangers that could possibly kill us. Please tread lightly." Despite the looming sense of danger, Dr. Blackwood pressed on, her curiosity outweighing her apprehension. With a determined expression, she reached out and pushed aside the tapestry, revealing the entrance to the library beyond. They were met with two thick, ominous black doors around 20 feet in height. They exuded a message of "go away," a most unwelcoming presence. Dr. Blackwood sighed. I guess we're not getting in this way. Need me to open a window? Eric asked as he glanced at the side of the building. Yes, but don't break anything. We're not thugs. Be discreet, she said with a serious stare. As they all followed Eric around the building looking for a window to crack open, Lily added, I'm small enough that if you can get me in a window, I can come around and unlock the front door for you. The group nodded in agreement. Eric chose a window that was close to the front doors, got out his toolkit, and worked to get the latch to click open. Be careful, those are stained glass windows, Dr. Blackwood silently scolded. Eric shot a hard stare back at her. Will you let me work? I'm after the latch, not looking to break a window. After a few tense minutes, there was a click and the sound of a window sliding. Got it, Eric said as he lowered himself down. Up you go. He boosted Lily up and she made her way inside. She made her way to the main doors and tried to open them. She poked her head out the window. We got a problem. The doors won't budge. I guess this is the only way in. One by one, they all slowly climbed through the window, and Eric slowly slid it closed and locked it. He went over to the main doors and tried to open them. Damn, you're right. These are solid. Maybe too many years of exposure to the elements. Yeah, they're not moving. The interior of the library was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the stained glass windows. Dr. Blackwood took a tentative step forward, her companions close behind. As they ventured deeper into the library's shadowy interior, the air grew thick with anticipation. Every creak of the floorboards in the entryway seemed to echo in the oppressive silence, a constant reminder of the weight of their intrusion. But Dr. Blackwood remained undeterred, her eyes fixed on the ancient tomes that lined the shelves. There's no turning back now, she said, her voice filled with determination. We've come too far to let fear hold us back. With that, the intruders pressed on, their quest for knowledge leading them deeper into the heart of the forgotten library of Ebon Hollows, unaware of the dark forces that lay in wait. They moved cautiously through the labyrinthian corridors of the forgotten library. Their footsteps echoed softly against the ancient stone floor of the interior. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, and a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the darkness. As they explored the shelves lined with dusty tomes and crumbling scrolls, Dr. Blackwood couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. Each book held the promise of untold secrets and forgotten lore, a treasure trove of knowledge waiting to be unearthed. Alexandria's forbidden knowledge, she commented in awe of her surroundings. This place is incredible, Eric remarked, his voice filled with wonder as he examined a particularly ornate volume bound in cracked leather. Imagine the stories these books could tell. But their sense of wonder soon gave way to unease as they stumbled upon the section of the library that seemed untouched by time. The shelves were filled with books bound in strange, leathery hides, their pages yellowed with age and inscribed with cryptic symbols. Lily shivered as she ran her fingers over the spines of the books, her skin prickling with an unexplained sense of dread. There's something off about these, she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. And then they found it, a book unlike any they had ever seen before. Its cover was carved from obsidian stone, polished to a glossy sheen that seemed to absorb the light around it. An intricately carved picture of a skull overlaying a pentagram adorned the front, with ancient runes inscribed within the pentagram. Dr. Blackwood hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch the book. This is it, she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of her racing heart. The Codex Obscurus. As they opened the book, a chill swept through the air, and the very walls of the library seemed to groan in protest. The pages, made from ancient papyrus and inked in goat blood, were filled with arcane symbols and sinister illustrations that seemed to writhe and twist before their eyes. Eric recoiled in horror as he read the words inscribed on the page before him, his eyes widening with fear. We shouldn't be here. Something's wrong, he said, his voice trembling. We need to leave now. But it was too late. The book had already ensnared them in its dark embrace, and they could feel its sinister presence seeping into their very souls, twisting their thoughts and desires until they were nothing but puppets in its cruel game. As they struggled to break free from the book's grasp, they realized the terrible truth. They were paralyzed by fear, at the mercy of forces beyond their comprehension. And as the shadows closed in around them, they knew that they would never escape the horrors that lurked within the pages of the Codex Obscurus. Silas's ears pricked up as he heard faint sounds echoing through the empty halls of the floor above him. His steps fell silent as he listened intently, his senses on high alert. The sounds were unmistakable. A soft shuffle of footsteps, the murmur of voices, coming from the upper floor of the library. He had intruders. He cautiously made his way towards the source of the disturbance. His footsteps were barely audible against the ancient stone floor as he ascended the whispering staircase. As he reached the top step, Silas emerged into the dimly lit chamber bathed in an eerie glow. His eyes widened in astonishment as he beheld the sight before him. A group of intruders, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a lantern, surrounded by towering shelves of ancient tomes. Dr. Amelia Blackwood stood at the center of the group, her expression a mix of excitement and trepidation as she reached out to touch a particularly ominous-looking book. Eric and Lily hovered nearby, their faces etched with concern as they watched their companion's every move. Silas cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the intruders to his presence. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice a low, grovelly rasp that echoed through the chamber. Dr. Blackwood turned to face him, shaken from her trance. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of the janitor of shadows. We're just exploring," she stammered, her voice tingling with uncertainty. "We mean no harm." Silas regarded the group with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. His gaze lingered on the book in Dr. Blackwood's hands. "That book," he said, gesturing toward the ominous tome. "Do you know what that is?" Dr. Blackwood hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the book's cover. "It's the Codex Obscurus," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've heard stories about it, but we never thought we'd find it here." Silas's eyes narrowed as he studied the book, a sense of foreboding creeping over him. "That book holds dark secrets," he warned, his voice grave. "You must put it back." Its power is not to be trifled with. But Dr. Blackwood seemed undeterred. Her curiosity outweighed her caution. "We need to know what's inside," she insisted, her fingers tracing the carvings on the book's cover. "We need to understand." Silas's heart sank as he watched Dr. Blackwood's determination, knowing that she was treading on dangerous grounds. "You don't understand," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "Some things are better left unknown." But his words fell on deaf ears as Dr. Blackwood turned her eyes back to the Codex Obscurus, its pages whispering secrets that should have remained buried. As the shadows closed in around them, Silas could only watch in horror as the intruders unleashed its intrusive darkness, sealing their fate within the haunted halls of this dark and unwelcoming place. Silas stood frozen in horror as the Codex Obscurus unleashed its dark power upon the intruders. The air crackled with energy, and shadows danced across the chamber as the ancient tome's secrets spilled forth. Dr. Amelia Blackwood's eyes widened in awe as she flipped through the pages, her fingers tracing the twisted runes and sigils that adorned them. "It's incredible," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "The knowledge contained within. It's beyond anything we could have imagined." But Eric and Lily's expressions were a mixture of fear and terror as they watched the scene unfold. We really need to go. Something's not right here," Eric urged, his voice tinged with desperation. "We need to get out of here before it's too late." As Dr. Blackwood delved deeper into the Codex Obscurus, a dark energy began to envelop the chamber, twisting and warping reality itself. Shadows coalesced into sinister shapes, and the air grew thick, the scent of ancient magic and sulfur. Silas watched as the intruders' faces contorted with pain, their bodies racked by unseen forces. Dr. Blackwood's hands trembled as she struggled to maintain her grip on the book, her eyes wide with terror. "No!" Silas shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have to stop!" But his words were lost amidst the chaos as the Codex Obscurus exuded its influence, its dark power consuming everything in its path. Eric and Lily fought to break free from the book's grasp, their screams drowned out by the cackling of voices that filled the chamber. Shadows danced around them, twisting and writhing like living things as they reached out to claim their souls. Silas rushed forward, his heart pounding in his chest as he tried to pry the book from Dr. Blackwood's hands. "You have to let it go!" he pleaded, his voice strained with effort. But Dr. Blackwood's grip remained steadfast. Her eyes glazed over with an unnatural fervor. "I must know," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. "I must understand." With a final desperate cry, Silas tore the Codex Obscurus from Dr. Blackwood's grasp, hurling it across the chamber with all his strength. The book crashed against the stone floor. Its pages fluttered open as a surge of dark energy erupted from its depths. In an instant, the chamber was consumed by darkness, and Silas could only watch in horror as the intruders were swallowed up by the shadows. Their screams echoed through the library, a chilling reminder of the price of curiosity. As the darkness subsided, Silas stood alone in the chamber, his breath ragged and his heart heavy with sorrow. The Codex Obscurus lay abandoned on the floor, its malevolent power contained, for now. But in the shadows, the wraiths stirred. Their ghostly forms flickered in and out of existence, Their mournful wails echoed through the library, a silent warning to all who dared to disturb the ancient knowledge that lay within its walls. With that, Silas grabbed the grimoire of ashen pages, walked across the library, and stood at the top of the whispering staircase. His heart pounded in his chest. The air seemed to crackle with an energy, and shadows danced along the walls as if alive. This was his moment, his chance to confront the darkness that lurked within the depths of the library. "I've had enough," Silas muttered to himself, his voice a low growl of determination. "To hell with the consequences." With a deep breath, Silas began his descent, each step echoing through the silent chamber. The air grew colder with each passing moment, and the sound of his footsteps was drowned out by the whispers that filled the air. As he descended deeper and deeper, the darkness seemed to envelop him, wrapping him in its cold embrace. But Silas pressed on, his mind focused on the task ahead. At last, Silas reached the bottom of the staircase, a door looming before him like a gateway to another world. With trembling hands, he inserted the tarnished key into the ancient lock, the metal teeth clicking into place with a finality that sent a shiver down his spine. The door swung open, revealing a chamber bathed in moonlight. Shelves lined the walls as he stood there holding a single volume, a grimoire filled with forgotten spells, lost histories, and shattered destinies. Silas's gaze fell upon the grimoire of ashen pages, the Book of Shadows. Its silver-threaded velvet cover beckoned, promising answers to questions mortals dared not ask. He had glimpsed its final chapter, the one that revealed the fate of all who entered the library. The knowledge weighed heavy on him, etched into his mind like frost on glass. With a determined stride, Silas slammed the grimoire down on the desk, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns of its cover. "It ends here," he declared, his voice ringing out in the silent chamber. "No more secrets. No more lies." Silas's bony fingers traced the final incantation, the one that would rewrite his fate. The grimoire pulsed, its silver threads glowing with an otherworldly light. The moon hung low, casting its silvery glow through the stained glass windows, and the race held their breath in anticipation. Closing his eyes, Silas whispered the words, the ones that would bind him or set him free. The library rumbled, and the race wailed, their voices a chorus of anguish and despair. And in that moment, Silas Ashweaver embraced his destiny, whatever it may be, and let the darkness consume him. As the moon cast its pale light upon the forgotten library of Ebon Hollows, wisps of smoke began to rise from the Codex Obscurus. Slowly, the smoke coalesced, forming the spectral figure of Dr. Blackwood. Her eyes, vacant of emotion, sunken in shadows, scanned the ancient shelves, taking in the weight of centuries-old knowledge that surrounded her. Dr. Blackwood's gaze fell upon a certain key hanging around her neck, the same key that once belonged to Silas Ashweaver, the janitor of shadows. Its presence served as a silent reminder of the responsibility she now bore. The mantle of custodianship passed down from one guardian to the next. Without hesitation, Dr. Blackwood reached out and grasped the Codex Obscurus. The ancient tome pulsated with dark power beneath her touch. She returned the book to its rightful place, its ominous presence once again sealed within the depths of the library. With the Codex Obscurus once back in its place, Dr. Blackwood's transformation was complete. She picked up the broom, the symbol of custodial duty, and began to sweep the moonlit floors of the library. The echoes of her footsteps mingled with the whispers of the wraiths, a testament to the timeless nature of the library and the duty that bound its guardians together. As the night deepened and the world outside faded into darkness, the legacy of the forgotten library of Ebon Hollows continued. Dr. Blackwood, the new custodian, embraced her role, her curse, knowing that she stood as the guardian of secrets long forgotten, ensuring that Ebon Hollows remained safe and hidden from the prying eyes of the world. In the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, one must tread carefully, for the price of enlightenment may be higher than one is willing to pay. For in the realm of darkness, even the brightest truths cast the darkest shadows. Hey everyone, I really hope you enjoyed this story. This one actually started out as like a prompt when I asked the AI, what's a good scary story you can think of? It popped out a summary of something called The Forgotten Library, and it was a very general story. So I added the Library of Alexandria and the dark tomes that were rescued from it to be put in this forgotten library. Also, I added the end when Dr. Blackwood was the new curator of the library. And this helps you realize that with the Forgotten Library, it doesn't care whether you're living or dead, whether it's by like you're volunteered or cursed. The library always needs a custodian. So this may expand into something else, and I really maybe possibly hope it does. We'll see where we go from there, because this has lots of potential for expansion. So that's what I got for today. Remember, I got the link for Buy Me a Coffee if you want to contribute. You don't have to. It's not mandatory. It's just, requested. Always like, comment, and subscribe on my channel. I'm growing my channel, so that really does help. And remember, it's okay to be scared. I am too. Embrace the strange and embrace your imagination. And I'll see you in the next story.